Well, welcome back, everybody, to Trading ThinkScript. My name is Mike Fairbourn. It is good to be back here with you today. Hey, I've been getting several requests about building an intraday or sort of a day trading type scan, intraday type trading scan over different time frames that we can easily select. So I've had a few different requests about that. I've got some elements that I want to tie into that, specifically like VWAP on a short-term basis can be very interesting once the daily chart lines up. So we're going to be collectively just kind of building up and piecing together different components here to form that day trading or intraday trading strategy over whatever time frame you're after, but picking up specifically on uh, signals that we would want to see maybe on a weekly or a daily chart, but then also maybe some indicators that are really um, identifiable on an intraday basis. That would be, pivot points, VWAP, to spot those sort of shorter term moves. So I look forward to diving into that with you all. Hope you're having a good day and on a shortened week, right? We've got a extended weekend coming up here, but would like to say hello to Rocky from PA, as well as Jenny Michelle from the deep South. That's good to have you on board. That would be, I'm thinking deep South, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, those neck of the woods somewhere down there. That's what I think. I've got a friend down in Alabama that I grew up next to here in Utah, but he's in Alabama. And all right, hello to you, Cecil, as well as Michael, Robert, and David Scott. Good to have you on board. I'm joined in the chat by a good friend and colleague of mine, Cameron May. Folks, follow us both on X. Cameron May CS stands for Charles Schwab. Mike Fairbourn CS as well. Oh, from Texas. Great state of Texas. All right. Well, great to have you all. Hey, let's do this. Let's do some disclosure items so we could jump on into our discussion today and build out this intraday strategy type scan. So with that, the information here is for general information purposes only. paperMoney software application is provided for education purposes only as well. Now, backtesting results, they are hypothetical, and there's no guarantee that the same strategy implemented today would produce similar results going forward. Investing does involve risk, including for some products more than your initial investment. Now, past performance of any security strategy does not guarantee future results or success. Quick look at our futures because we will reference those at times, just the charts though. Futures and futures options trading does involve substantial risk. It is not suitable for all investors. All right, so jumping back to our regular discussion here and a quick look at, those are our studies here still from last week when we're looking at some other indications. I'm just going to take that off for now. That was an implied volatility. You can take a look at that from last week if you are interested. Oh, we got another one. Oh, maybe I got that one. Okay, yeah, both. There you have it. Back to the S&P 500. Just a quick note on the S&P and just general market conditions because that can oftentimes and frequently does determine, hey, are we looking at a risk on, risk off sort of market environment, bullish, risk on, bearish, risk off? What are we seeing here? Now, what's interesting is we are getting a lot of sort of feedback right now, and like these how do they say it? Something like an agreement, memorandum agreement or something with Iran. That's just going to create, there's just a lot of volatility over here. And, those news, this might be extended for a period of time, though, where they can open up the Straits of Hormuz. Anyways, long story short, here we are on the S&P 500. Still, we do know that there has been operating behind the scenes this this growth, this innovative productivity growth within AI. And you can see the NASDAQ still quite strong. You'd have to say that after a big run like the NASDAQ did have over here, right? This big rally, we've not done too bad. I mean, in terms of just general consolidation here, which, by the way, folks, are you shocked to see consolidation after a big run? You shouldn't. I've seen it for years and years that way. We'll see a big run. I mean, this was a great example. Here I am saying it. This is a great example over here. This was an extended rally. I mean, very, very long period of time. Sideways move and a rally to the upside. So a lot of traders are still anticipating a move going up. Now, part of this could have been, a spike in oil, but you'll notice that even with the spike in oil, now that we're going to go into our futures charts, we had a spike in oil, higher oil prices. We still saw that AI rally continue to unfold. With this too, just a quick note I'm going to just highlight this because I sent this out and we've been tracking this a little bit. I don't know if we're going to get down to these lows. I did send out an X post on this, which I'm going to pull up here for you momentarily. There we go. It's just still CL. It's easier for me to do this than recreate those lines. But you can see over here, this was on CL and that was that triangle pattern. Once we broke that lower triangle, which was an interesting break because it did tie in that big round number, which we've oftentimes seen resistance and support, kind of gravitate, bounce off of, or break down below, in terms of maybe a resistance point going forward. But that level, you basically just measure this, and I've got it in blue here. That's what that blue line is. You measure that from the breakdown, and we've got this point all the way down here. Now that could fuel the economy. It's funny to say that fuel because I'm talking about, crude, but it still could put some power behind the economy to run up and could get us started as we start to come back down into even some of these levels that were peaks before the Iran conflict, right? So just park that in the back of your mind as you're thinking about what kind of scripts to look for. We are looking at a bullish script today based on these conditions, but notice we are coming back down in the price of oil, and that can help to stimulate the general market for short. It can. There's just more consumer spending, transports, etc. across the board. There are big impacts. But that would be the level. And by the way, if we do hit all the way down to 60, that is actually pre kind of Iran, this significant conflict. So we'll see what happens here. If you guys want to check this out or anything else, I'll just post this in to the chat so you can check it out. But I did have one also in here. This is kind of crazy too. I don't know if you guys, just as a total side note, uh, this don't ever try to catch a falling knife is the theory here on a trade like this, or something to remember. That's Intuit from 800 to the 260 range. Isn't that crazy within a year? And I think it's that AI tax prep that's impacting this. There was always a premium tied into the TurboTax valuation. A little bit of a side note, but still, yeah, there's still, even despite the market being strong, there are still some bears out there, no doubt about it, that are impacted negatively by AI. Real fast too, just as a quick review, CRM, that's instead of software as a service, they're just kind of that model's changing very quickly with AI, and these companies are taking a hit. Anyways, not to say that because these companies are like, say, for example, many of them are in the NASDAQ, but different ones are really accounting for the move. So what could help us to avoid that too? So now, as we kind of transition here into um, that, like we said, in terms of today, what we're looking for, right? Specifically, building an intraday process for trading scan to help us take advantage of longer term indicators and then also shorter term indicators that are noted on the chart, VWAP, pivot points, things like that. So tying that in together into kind of an intraday trading sort of a setup approach that traders would use is we've had several topic requests that kind of hit around that level and some right on it. So I wanted to dive into that for those of you just joining us. And I was just going to say hello to Will. Hello to you, Will, and Scott and others. Will, the sunset guy, he loves those sunsets. Not kidding. Now, I do too, but absolutely. Good to have you all right, JV, great to have you too, as well as Riceberg. Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about big picture here. So even though we have some of these stocks that are moving AI, AI field, and obviously a lot of these are going to be like AMD, semiconductors. NVIDIA has been a little bit of a slower one, although it has consolidated a little bit. And obviously we've got Intel and others in here, but just using NVIDIA as an example, because this is one that has had good earnings and has had good growth. I think Jensen Huang, the CEO, said it's one of the great mysteries as to why the stock isn't going higher or something like that. And he's uncovered a lot of mysteries, right, in terms of development, but this is one of his great mysteries. Anyhow, just a little side note that I believe he made. Over here, big round number, 200. We've kind of come down and bounced off this a few times, haven't we? I think one thing that traders might be waiting for is maybe something that we'd seen previously on the super scan. I should say the super trend scan. It is the super trend. We've talked about that too. But getting kind of started over here, getting above a range, maybe a higher high and a higher low, we might be very, very close to starting on something like this. That could get things rolling again, just generally in the market. So, big picture, what could we identify here if we were actually looking to pick up on something like an NVIDIA or something, just a broad range through a scan mechanism here using the stock hacker, taking advantage of these great capabilities of the platform? Well, one thing is just big picture. I'm going to line these up for us a little bit. So if we just did like a simple moving average, one that's common, we've looked at the 20, we've looked at the 50. The 50 has had a pretty big impact if we're looking at I should say, intermediate term timeframes have been effective and helpful. So a really simple scan we could do there, but maybe something, you know, uh, this is just barely breaking above the 50, as you can see, just barely, but above the 50. Now that would be like an intermediate type scan. So simple as we're building out a method, or I just say a setup or an approach that some traders might use. And that would be like an intermediate, INT for short, right? Trend 50, 50. Gosh, I can't write too well. 50 DMA. We could also use, or the 20. You could use the 30. Commonly in the past, we've used a lot of 30s. Cameron and I definitely know about the 30-day moving average. No doubt about it. Something that, and that's kind of like really a month and a half type time frame. But the bottom line is are we seeing an intermediate move to the upside? So that would be one, like a 50-day moving average. Now, another one that we had looked at could be much, much shorter to capture a shorter term move before we go, folks, and venture into intraday. For example, that would be something like we've looked at short-term MACDs. We've also looked at exponential moving averages. Moving average exponential is how as long as you pick up on one of these letters in a row, like EXP, you got it. There we go. 9 or 10, I think that's the default. I'll just use the default. That's fine, 9 or 10. It's very quick though. So what are you getting here? You're also getting an additional confirmation, and a couple of things come up. Like in this case, obviously, as we go through, and we're just very deliberate about how we're doing this, intermediate term time frame, were we above it over here in this range? We absolutely were. We're above the intermediate. However, I'll put it in red here, we were below the short term. So getting the short term and the intermediate term in line does, it kind of looks like, well, that was one that failed, right? We don't know. I mean, there was a hold in there, a close above the high, the low day. We kind of bounced and gravitated towards a prior support level. If you look over here with me, that's actually also a very interesting point right there. Oof, isn't that true? Look at this right here. Climbing above and getting back above, and we're right there. The prior low is also interesting, just a view. But over here, I'm just going to show you, like, in that downward trend. Yeah, I mean, as we're trying to communicate to ThinkScript, this would have qualified because it's above both. This would qualify because it's above both as well. Remember, we don't ever forget what we've learned in the past. The trend is clearly up, higher highs, higher lows, intermediate indications, short-term indications, bouncing off interesting support, and maybe ready to start going. Just to choose one example here of a move. Now, of course, AMD, yeah, you're going to get that too. And could this not be traded? There you go. It was below it right here on the short term, but here we are again, and we did hit. This is always so interesting too. When you get a new high, folks, when you get a new high, you're trending higher. There's just not too many other ways to describe it. And it's very, very straightforward. In addition, we are getting higher lows, clearly. Okay, this one we looked at a 10-day simple. This is a 9 EMA. It's very, very quick. There are variations. It might be a day quicker, whatever. Bottom line is, could this also be setting up for a bounce like this over here? Yeah, I mean, it could. And we want to see, like, what other indications are unfolding on this short-term basis that could help us break out. Now, this could be useful too for the super trend indicator, the super trend scan. We could look at the Jesse Livermore. We've talked about that one before, that classic trader from, gosh, the 1920s and 30s. I think he started actually in the 1910 range. But I mean, he had some very interesting approaches that can still work right to this day that we've been looking at in terms of higher lows. That's in our list of our playlist of discussions that we've had previously. But drawing attention to some intraday information, for example, pivot points and VWAP specifically. So volume weighted average price, where we're looking at volume combined with the trading, and are we seeing where volume kind of starts to overweight on the buy side on an intraday basis? That's where, a lot of these moves can start. So we're going to tie that in to really create that intraday trading scan. Okay, but not without this first. And so I wanted to make it really straightforward because right now, to build those, unless we have just a unique indicator. And by the way, we did talk about, let's say, the super trend scan. Um, I mean, something like that could be used intraday too, right? And it looks at using ATRs. So we don't want to miss that point. We just want to, we can change the duration on something like that. Quick note on that. I'll just pull it up here real quick because there are other ways to just flip it to an intraday to see how that's doing as well. It doesn't look at the VWAP though, and that could be an interesting addition for sure, to do that. Quick note, folks, before we dive into that intraday and really kind of complete this short-term, long-term daily chart with an intraday chart, if you're getting value out of this discussion, smash that like button. It lets us know that what Cam and I are presenting here is of value to you guys, and we'll continue to do that. A quick note here, I'll pull this up. Also, be sure to subscribe to our Trader Talks channel. I'll put that in the links down below. Many of you already are. It's great to have you on board. Where are we at now? So 202, 202,000. Great. Have you on board. But that is our Trader Talks. Remember, if it does say you're already subscribed, well, don't unsubscribe is my point. I'm not even seeing unsubscribe here, but if you see that, don't click on unsubscribe. You're already subscribed. Coming over here, you can come over here and just do a search and pull up these playlists as well. Like, for example, we did the super trend. I'll pull it up right here so you can see it. There's the super trend coming right from thinkScript. We did the scan and the script itself. We had one with a look back period, the most recent one we did too. So feel free to utilize that too on an intraday basis as well. The playlists down below. I'm going to throw that playlist in just so you folks have it. This is the one we did. This is the assigned one we did last week for options that we talked about previously. But I'll just let you know that there is this is where you can find that if you want to pull that one up, because that too could be used on an intraday basis. There it is, thinkScript playlist. Okay. All right, everybody, let's continue. Now, for the interesting stuff, by the way, let's just do this on a quick scan over here. This is so straightforward, just using the same study. I love this because we can all just build it and you guys can have it. Although when I'm done, I will share that thinkScript with you. ThinkScripts aren't guaranteed for timeless or accuracy, but as long as the data is flowing through the platform correctly, we have good data, then that script should provide good numbers. But yeah, we just don't guarantee for timeless or accuracy. On that, let's clear this one off. Oh, sorry. Let's get into the study and then we'll clear it off. So here it is. So I just went into the add filter. I'll do that again. Just some of you are new here. Want to make sure we're all on board. What we're tapping into is the scan tab up top, as well as the stock hacker next. Okay, there are other hackers, as you can see, but this is specifically on the stock hacker. And right now, we're scanning in the S&P 500. I might flip that over to the NASDAQ in a second here, but just as a note, we'll go ahead and scan the big index first. I'm going to click on that little pencil here so we can take a look at that script. The first thing we want to do is delete that ADX, and we are just going to add basic conditions. I like this because it can get you guys up and going very, very quick. If you want to learn the code, it's a good way to learn the code too. It's one of the ways that I definitely learned the code initially through the thinkScript editor. But all we're simply looking at is this. Say, for example, price, closing price is crossing above or is greater than. I'm just going to use a greater than for now. The short-term one, the intermediate term one, I'm going to say is greater than, um, let's see, the study of the simple moving average. And, oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? Study. There we go. Simple moving average. And I'm just going to say it's going to be, we are going to choose the simple, and it's going to be the 50s. We want to compare, we want to make sure that what we had on the chart is exactly what we have on the scanner. So it pulls up those stocks and they, are comparable. So we're looking at the same thing. But because we're saying is greater than, we're just saying we want it greater than now within the last bar. In other words, the bar right now is greater than the 50. And that would work for the stocks that we were just looking at, AMD, NVIDIA. I like to do it on a line item basis just so you can see it step by step. So that's like step one. That's the longer intermediate term. Okay. Uh, and like, for example, if we were just going to run it, we could click on this. And these are all the companies. There are 268, a little more than half, that are above the S&P 5, above the SMA, the 50 SMA. But we're not done. We want to add in our next one, and I'll do that again. So add that condition, price, closing price. In this case, we want to say crosses above. Now, I'm going to say within the last couple of bars, at least, maybe 2 to 3. Well, we do is 3. But this is the price of the stock. The action crosses above. The study is going to be the exponential moving average. I'm going to keep the default as a 9, just that they have here. We are going to say within 3 days. So 1 day, 2 day, or 3 days within that time frame. It's not saying exactly 3 bars ago. There is a way for us to do that. But this is really nice to have this down below. So now we say within 3 bars, that shorter term moving average, that which is the 9. In fact, this is what it looks like on the script right over here. Okay. And that's just the default. We chose the default code, and I'll show it to you right over here. Length is 9. So that's how it looks. You guys can build that and save it real easily. I'm going to click. We're going to knock down our number by quite a bit. 268, folks, all the way down to 45. So if we look at these, you're going to see some of these that would qualify for that. There's your NVIDIA. We know that. And it's always helpful too, if you're getting up to speed on this, just to have the chart up so you can verify that what you're getting is, what you've got right here. We crossed above both, and we're still above there on the 50, but it does qualify. NVIDIA is one of those right there. So others, you can see they're right in that list, but that's just longer term. And notice one quick thing over here. Look at the duration daily. Those are all within the same duration. Now, one thing I can do to actually make this a little bit easier and split it up, just so we keep everybody on the same page. I do get feedback that to kind of go slow on some of this. So just so we're good on this, I'm going to change that duration because now, actually, I'll just cancel this for now. We'll keep it in here for a second. Now we're going to go into the intraday chart. And we're going to start talking about those shorter term trades for those traders that might want to be trading. You can see I have it up here. This is my designated grid chart. Actually, I did throw the weekly on as a little bonus that I click on from time to time, but I've got a daily, 30-minute, and a 5-minute chart. And that's real easy to do. Let me know if you need help on this, but that's all I'm doing is I'm just clicking over here. Now here's the 30-minute chart. Interesting, right? There's a lot more data. We get to see what that looks like over here and see if there's actual strength. Well, I would have to say this, on that NVIDIA, we wanted to see what this breakout looked like over here. We also wanted to see, what this move off of this higher low looks like. Well, it's kind of flagging right now. Are we getting signs, though, that this flag is going? And by the way, show up on the scan if we are. I want to go through some of those right now with you, but let me just make sure we're all on the same page on that. I'll scoot back here. We might be. Oh, thanks, BJ. Yeah, BJ subscribed. We can stick in. Okay, so let's see. Lotus says, Michael, are there any sessions to show how to build and automate a strategy? That's a good topic request. We don't have time today, but I like that. I'll make a note of that, and we can do something like that in the next, week or so, in terms of automated strategies. Yeah, there is an approach to do that with ThinkScript for sure. We have done a little bit of it, and you'll find it in that playlist. Okay, but I can't tell you which one it was. It was a little while ago. We could actually look at a short, simple one and an advanced one too, so that it would automate. It would just signal. Let's say, for example, you were putting in a paper trade. It could signal an entry on something like that. So. All right, well, let's do this real quick too. So there's your 30. One more click. Look at that. Got the 5 minute. Okay, so a lot of times it's the 5 minute the traders are looking for. What could be gathered on a 5 minute chart? Well, something like this. Is this worth your while? That's a good question to ask too. If this was in fact if we were just looking to trade, maybe like this type of a flag pattern, I actually have to break this up because I would actually have to say, guys, that and gals, that right there would be uh, it could be a longer term. So longer term's relative. It's a 5 minute chart, but we have a lot of volatility lately, particularly in AI. So this kind of a trading system, and I think that's why we're getting a lot of feedback, is you can get bigger moves even on a short-term time frame, depending upon the stock you're looking at. It's had prior moves, it might have those moves in the future. But here is, say, for example, a flag pattern. Now, in my swing trade class, I did do it a lot of discussions. I've got to pull this down further. Sorry, I got to redo this. If I don't, my drawing tools will just be a little bit weird. So there we go. I'll redraw this again. I'll just change the colors. Let's see if we go over here. We're looking at this, we're looking for indications. But first thing you want to ask yourself is I'm looking at a stock that might have enough volatility, a beta that might be strong. But I talked about this at length in the swing trade class. That is two patterns within one move. There's your first flag pattern. Here's your second flag pattern right there. Do you see it? It's clear. I did this, I painted it in yellow on my swing trade class so you could see it. But a lot of times, if you get a pattern within pattern, a lot of traders are interested in that. In other words, we could still see, like say, for example, if we start to move from here off those lows, that's the short-term pattern. But we might have a longer-term pattern unfolding here. This might be interesting for NVIDIA on a short-term basis. Now, does it have to start to break? Yes. We might want, I mean, some traders would say yes, they want to see it to start to break some highs in here to get going. But what kind of a move is this, first of all, on a short-term scale? Using yellow over here. So here we are around 210-ish. That puts us up, okay, right in the middle of that range. That's about a 3-point move right there. I mean, if it hit its target, approximately, folks, these aren't perfect. I'm just giving you an idea, right? 3 points. Now, how about our next move over here? This one ran up. Okay, I've kind of just done the spacing over here. So we've got, this is about here. It's somewhere over here, approximately. Okay. So it's closer to, maybe closer to 216. What does that suggest? The longer term, if we're looking at this flag pattern here, there could be a longer term move, right? Either way, you got a couple of these that could begin to move up a little bit. I mean, patterns within patterns, and sometimes traders like that probability, but not without maybe a VWAP change. So let's pull up the VWAP right now and have it ultimately do a scan on a 5 minute chart. So we're back now into our studies. I'm going to go into the volume weighted average price. Let's go ahead and click on it too. Let's do this first, right there. We do have the code. It's a built-in indicator. Oh, shoot, it's one of these where you have to kind of scroll over. No, you can't. So VWAP equals something over here, but it's large print, so you're not going to see it. But anyways, it will go through and explain the details. We did a whole session on this. So we can look at that too, but let's just click on it. And this is the standard. I'm going to do this just to make it easier. I'm going to take these out. I don't want the upper and the lower, although those could be interesting. I'm just thinking the VWAP. I didn't need to do it that way. I can just, you know what, whatever. We can keep them on, but I'm just going to take the lower like this, the lower and upper bands out so we can actually see it a little bit better. That is our VWAP line. We have standard deviations of 2 up, two down and two up. But this, here we go. We'll go VWAP. I'll put in a different color, maybe easier to see. Let's just go blue like this. And that's the difference. So this is where the volume can outpace. Now, are we above it or not? Yes, we are above it. Okay. This, through a short-term trading perspective, could really be seen as a positive. We're above it. Now, a lot of times it can act as a support level here. We can also run a scan too that might be even more timely. For example, what if when this ran, remember this is a 5-minute chart, so this is all happening today. This is today. Where did this kind of become interesting? Well, we went down below it, clearly, and then we crossed back up above it, and look at that bounce. Now, that very well could have been the move of that longer flag pattern, and some traders looked at this. When I zoom in, we're actually kind of consolidating on those prior highs. Interesting, we're at a low point. I don't know if the market's coming down now, selling off a little bit, but this is a support level here. I mean, will it hold? That's the question. But we can also do VWAP, volume weighted average price, crossing above. What stocks are not just greater than? We can run that for sure. We can have two separate scans. Which ones are crossing above? Let's say in the last couple, 2-3 bars, 2 to 4 bars or say, let's say like that. 5-minute bars. And so what is that? Within the last 20 minutes. It can move fast, but let's just see what we've got. So I want to program that next in here too. So we've got intermediate, we've got short term, and now we're shooting for intraday. Now that we know what to kind of look at on the chart, let's pull it up right now, folks. I'll share this one too. I want to show you how to build it in case you guys have different ideas that you want to put in, just like we talked about, greater than VWAP, crossing above VWAP. But I'll share the one we're going to be building here. And you can always just change it real quick too if you wanted to. Now, first thing I'm going to do, this is very important. We have our daily up top. This is going to be the 5-minute. I can click on that. I can also come in here into the aggregation and change it. Now, sometimes somebody might use a different aggregation period. Maybe they're looking for a little bit bigger sort of an indication on the bars. They're not looking at the 5-minute. The 5-minute does give a lot of sort of details you could look at, but we looked at the 30 as well, and that's quite a bit more data than the daily. I'm going to choose 5 over here. Okay. And we're just going to add this in. And this is it's still very powerful in terms of what it can do. Okay. So it is still price, so the closing price, but it's powerful because we can tap into all these other indicators, different time frames. There's the crosses above. Okay. What is it? It's going to be the volume weighted average price, VWAP, not the anchored VWAP, just the VWAP itself. You could say, if you ever wanted to, hey, is price going above the upper band? There are some ways to trade that too. The vast majority of traders, from what I know, and that can change, obviously, they just go for the VWAP itself. So that's the default. These really don't matter, these inputs, you could just leave them be. But what does matter here is within the time frame. And I said 2 to 4, I'm just going to say 4 bars. So we had a crossing above 4 with all this other data in here. We jumped above the VWAP within that time frame on a 5-minute. I'm going to exclude, by the way, extended hours trading. Just going to be during the day only that we saw this. You could include it if you want to, but we're just going to keep everything in daily. Okay, so we're good there, but you can see for a day trading system, it is definitely mixed. We want to get the daily trend in our favor. And what trends are those? Short term, intermediate term. In other words, we could get a lot of VWAP bars that are crossing, but it might look a lot like Intuit. Sorry, I'm picking on Intuit today. Can't believe it was 800 now down in the 260 range over a year, within a year. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of these within Intuit, but look at what the daily trend's been doing. It's well below the 50, the 200, the 100, the whatever, the shorter term. So you got to have it mixed, short term, intermediate, if you want to go with the trend. And that's what we're focused in on. In fact, specifically, we were looking at some of the these companies here. By the way, we did bounce off that range there too. So interesting. If I keep going for a few more 5-minute bars, although we're running out of time, we could start to see a break. And by the way, while we're at it, watch this. I'm gonna scan this here for us, and then I'll share that scan, but that's not the tool I'm after. If I wanted to add to this tool, look at this. If I just said this, breaking above the prior high or breaking the trend line could be interesting. This is a little bit more advanced in a sense, because you can still right click and then you would go to create alert. And then you would just say at or above, and you could just say something like trend line break, question mark. Remember, if you're using this tool though, notify with click this. I mean, if you've set the mobile up for text messages or your email or whatever, make sure you gotta click on that box to send. It also created a sound on the computer, but if you're not away from it, those messages could be helpful. Are we going to get our signal already? I just exited out of it, but I'm going to click on it anyways, just so I'll just forget the notes, but that could be text. So there it is. It just barely broke it. So here's the deal. To set that up under setup, you could come over here and go right into application settings. It's under your notifications. Okay, to set up the email and the text for those sorts of alerts. Now, having said that, I do need to note this very, very quickly here, and that is this, that for alerts by themselves, they are not guaranteed to be delivered or delivered at any specific speed or time frame and should not be used as a replacement for actively being aware of your positions. My alerts, they've been effective, they've worked, but hey, yeah, they're just saying that this can happen. Another quick note while I'm at it, before we add this, I couldn't resist because these are great tools to use on something like this. Once you've spotted it from the scan itself, you can always add tools to help you spot price pattern breakouts once you've identified these companies and they've come up in a list for you on the Stock Hacker. So I had to jump to that because I thought it might break that. By the way, what's the next one? Breaking the prior highs. The short term, the trend lines can be the initial indication you'll get before you begin to break above those highs, and there you go. Okay, now we're going to come back to our scan because that was a lot of talking, and we're going to scan this. Now, there might not be a lot here, so we can use something else because we're only within the last 20 minutes this happened, and look at that. We're still getting 10. So 5-minute chart, we're going to confirm this right now. I have a good feeling it worked, but we're gonna verify it because we're using the actual tools. If you do this, that code, folks, just goes right through to thinkorswim. You don't have to fuss with a lot of the code, but it's got to do something that you want to have anyways, right? Um, Look at this. What are we seeing here? Semiconductors, for sure, a lot of tech, and that's the S&P 500. So many of these are going to pull. There's Target too. Many of these will pull up in the NASDAQ though. But let's look at them right now and let's just verify exactly what we've got here. What was that one? I'm going to go back just a couple clicks over. Perfect. These indicators are set up, and so too is our 5-minute, where we can go ahead and verify. ADI, first one on our list. What are we seeing here? Okay. What do we get? Are we getting indications maybe of a possible breakout here on ADI? It certainly has had a consolidation. There's no doubt about it. Right over here. Look at that. See that? See the consolidation? I've got it right. This is so cool because when you get these, now this could be something we could be looking at. So trading ThinkScript, it could put us in these positions where there could be potential trades. This is just an example trade. We could be looking at a number of different other scenarios on stocks, but just generally speaking, above, bounced off, bounced off. Look at this. So bounced off, these moving averages can be very helpful there. Bounced off the short term. Okay, approaching a level. What I just drew in here was a measured type move. I'm just going to kind of give you an estimate. That would be potentially a short-term target. We'll see this on our 5-minute chart in just a second, but do you see what I'm saying? Look at this. Right there. Okay? Right to that point. We'll see what we get here. By the way, do you see another longer-term move potential? Sometimes you don't just necessarily, maybe you're just getting an intraday signal for a longer term move too. That's another way to split up an intraday, sort of a shorter term time frame trade. I'm using those terms because a lot of traders will use day trading or intraday, but we're just saying different, time frame time frame moves. But look at this. That's a lot bigger move if somebody said, yeah, maybe I'll trade this a little bit. Maybe I'll do 100 shares, close out 100 short term and let the remaining 25 or 50 shares, whatever, run to the higher point as an example. By the way, that was fascinating. That puts us very close up, I think, to that 500. That's a big round number as well. Okay, that's enough talking, Mike. Let's go forward. Boom, boom. There's our 5 minute. Did we take out the VWAP in the last couple of bars? We absolutely did. Could we have more eyes on this now? Because we're getting close to this breakout level. We sure could. I mean, somebody that's looking at this for an expectation, they could say definitely. And a lot of times, when a lot of times, just like we saw on that NVIDIA this morning, when you're getting these bigger bars in here, that could mean uh, just more indications of powering through some strength. Now, is there resistance up top? Oh yeah, we saw it. I'll see it on the 30 minute. That's even, see, 30 minute up top. Yeah, we saw it in the daily clearly. But maybe keep eyes on this one. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, I want to put in an example trade just so we have it. Now, would it make sense for a trader to wait above a break above here? Sure would. I mean, it's maybe a big resistance level. That's only like 2 points higher. Some people might even try to trade this move up to resistance from this level. But you could keep on here, for example, if this was the measured move from here, folks, up to here, and we're looking at a breakout, you could take this range up here. So if somebody was looking maybe at a potential exit below this point and a potential target up this point, this level, they could certainly maybe incorporate something like that. I'm just going to put in just a simple trade just by itself, but this would be one to kind of watch. This is just, remember, there's resistance here. I think a lot of traders might wait for longer term resistance to be broken because you're so close to it. But just as an example, so we've got one under our belt here. I'm just going to click on this. It's a very, very expensive stock. We're going to just do like 25 shares of this. Okay. Confirm, always read the dialog box through here. And you can see that up top and then just confirm it and send it on through. Still some time left in the trading day, but that's identifying, folks, which is our whole discussion today. Intermediate strength, short-term strength, maybe in a basket of companies that we're kind of familiar with in terms of maybe an underlying economic theme in terms of strength, going AI specifically, then breaking that down right over here into a short term and using that VWAP. Today, folks, was all about setting up that scan for multiple time frames, right? And a setup that a lot of traders over that short-term basis might end up using. Some are short, some are long, but trying to find those different, maybe even shorter time frame moves over here combined together. I hope you found that informative, useful. Folks, if you did get value out of this discussion, again, just smash that like button. Let's Cam and I know that, yeah, you guys found this useful, effective going forward. And let me just share that once again, too. So I'll share. First thing I got to do before I share it, I've got to actually save it. I believe. I want to save it anyways. I don't think I have to, but I'm just going to say, yeah, let's pull this up. Oh, let's give it the name that I was after exactly. Okay, so oh yeah, let's call it multiple time frames. Frame setups or trading or whatever you want to call it. We'll just do that there. Again, thinkScript's not guaranteed for time to accuracy, but we'll go ahead and just share that for you guys right now. And there it is in there. So you've got it. All right. Yeah, it is fascinating, Michelle. You know what you can do, Jenny, Michelle, what you can do on something like this, building this up, some of these scripts, the power, right, your fingertips. But here it is. Here is the script itself. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, great to be with you. Thank you so much, Cam, for your help in the chat. And folks, it was good to be here with you today. Have a fantastic weekend. Happy riding, says Will. Will, you know it. I'm going to be out there riding pretty quick here. But everybody, great to be with you. Appreciate our production crew behind the scenes helping us out as well. Guys, have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. See you next time.